What is up? Welcome to Dunkin' on Joe, Club Fantasy's newest show where we put Joe Pepe, our resident celebrity boxer, against some of the best fantasy analysts in this industry, and they're going to debate some sort of fantasy topic. I am Ryan Weisse. I am your guest host this week. My guy Evan Bush couldn't make it, but I'm happy to fill in. But nobody's here to see me. They're here for the superstar, Mr. 3-0, Joe Pepe. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. Thanks for the golf clap, Alex. I appreciate it. I'm good. A little tired today, but I had to get the energy up because we're talking the Eagles, and me and Alex both live in Philly, so this should be fun.
And I was going to ask that. So first and foremost, I want to intro our guest. Alex Matteo, you might be the most patient man in all of fantasy because I know for a fact you just did a show with our guy Joe, and then he ropes you into coming over in here and doing another one. So you're a better man than me, Alex. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Ryan, Joe. Thanks for having me on, guys. I mean, Joe, he's a good guy to work with. I enjoy doing the tripwire. Going on to the year 2 of the show. It's actually a year. Was it yesterday that?
Yeah, I think so. He actually had to talk me out of today, just like popping out of the camera and just putting this chicken up and just talking. Because I was just really hype about finding this chicken. So,
that's awesome.
For the people not like watching and just listening for some reason, I have a rubber chicken in my hand. Don't know why. I just do.
To take the beating tonight because he knows he'll lose this debate.
Okay. Now, Alex, I did not know you were also in Philly. Are you also an Eagles fan?
Die hard.
Okay, perfect. Okay, because I knew Joe was, and so you guys are on the opposite end of this debate. And if you guys haven't picked up on it yet, this debate is pertaining to a Philadelphia Eagles player. So if you've never tuned into the show, welcome. This better not be your last time. But what happens is Joe and Alex are each going to get some time, about 5 minutes, to plead their case on this week's question. And this week's question is A.J. Brown a top 10 fantasy wide receiver? Alex, an Eagles fan, says yes. Joe, an Eagles fan, says no. And so they're going to talk it out. And when it's all said and done, you guys will decide who's the winner. Joe is 3-0. Alex is confident. But as tradition states, we are going to go ahead and flip a coin to see who's going to go first. And Alex, as the guest, you will get to decide heads or tails.
Tails.
Damn, nobody ever lets me get tails.
And with the toss, it is in fact tails. So Alex, would you like to go first or second in this debate?
I will let Joe be wrong and go first.
Oh, you're going to let Joe go first? All right. I love it. So we are going to go ahead and bring Joe up on the screen. We are going to go ahead and mute Alex. And Joe, have at it, brother.
All right. So we're talking about A.J. Brown here, and we're talking about him coming off a disappointing season where he finished 32nd in fantasy points last season while missing 4 games due to injury. So he's got that little bit of injury risk because he missed a few games the years before, and he wasn't much better on that points per game basis either because he had 13.9 points per game. You know who was above him? DJ Moore, Michael Pittman, Hollywood Brown. A.J. Brown actually ranked 28th because of that. Overall, Brown posted his career lows in yardage, touchdowns, yards per reception, and like I said, fantasy points. So he was wildly inconsistent for fantasy managers last year, scoring single digits in 7 of those 13 games he played. And nearly 50% of his fantasy points came in 3 games. Now he's coming over to an offense who is still run first like he had before, but we have better weapons in Philadelphia than they did in Tennessee. We have Devonta Smith. We have Dallas Goedert. We have a plethora of running backs out of the backfield to also catch passes. And let's not forget about Alex's boy, Quez Watkins, who could be the deep threat as well. And then we also have a more mobile quarterback than Ryan Tannehill, who's going to take plays away from A.J. Brown. I think he's a superstar talent. Was I excited when we got him? Yes. But in the top 10, I don't know if I could do that. I have players like Evans above him, who's tied to Tom Brady. I could trust that more. I have Keenan Allen above him, who's tied to Justin Herbert. I trust him as a quarterback more. And for me, in those first couple rounds, you can't win your fantasy league, but you could sure as hell lose your fantasy league. And I'm not taking that risk with a guy who is so boom or bust with a new quarterback where the franchise, as much as I want Jalen Hurts to blow up because I am an Eagles fan, the franchise has positioned themselves just in case if he doesn't, to go get somebody else next year with those 2 first-round picks. So I'm a little nervous about him. He's not far outside of my top 10, but all he has to do is miss a couple of games, and then he's not top 10. And he showed us in the last 2 years he can't stay healthy. He's got better targets surrounding him now. He's got a quarterback that everybody's a little iffy about. I'd rather give me Keenan Allen, give me Mike Evans, give me those two guys that are right around him in the ADP, because right now I believe A.J. Brown is 28th in ADP, and they're 26 and 27. So I'll take those two guys with the better quarterbacks all day, every day, and twice on Sunday.
And what I love about that is I love when you know the guests so well that you went with the deep cut Kes Watkins pool that nobody was expecting Kes Watkins' name to come up in this debate whatsoever. Alex, he's going for the throat. He's going for your favorite players now. So.
He loves them. He loves them.
Well, let me start with Quez won me multiple weeks in the Scott Fish Bowl last year and got me to the playoffs. So there is no Quez slander allowed, Joseph.
All right. I absolutely love it. Alex, you ready to go at it on A.J. Brown?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, have it at it, brother. Oh,
all right. So I will agree with you, Joe, there on Mike Evans. He is tethered to Tom Brady. He's actually at that cusp where I would still consider taking him over A.J. Brown. But with Chris Godwin back, he wasn't on the pup today, so that's a very good sign of him being healthy sooner than later. Now let's go through the list of receivers who we would take over him. You got Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Stephon Diggs, CeeDee Lamb, Cooper Kupp, and Mike Evans. That has him at wide receiver 7 off the board for me. Now, why would I take him wide receiver 7? First off, this past year, even though he was on a different team, still a similar scheme to offense. When healthy, he saw a 40% air yard share, which was number 3 in the entire league, and had a 27% target share, which was number 9 in the league. So Tannehill, even in a run-oriented offense, was very dependent on him. Now coming to Philly, A.J. Brown is going to be with his best friend. And when I mean his best friend, Jalen Hurts is A.J. Brown's daughter's godfather. We're pushing the godfather narrative. We had the breakfast narrative with Stafford, the locker room shower narrative with Burrow and Chase. We're going to endorse this godfather narrative. Now, in regards to the narratives, yes, that's great. There will be the comfortability, but how will that help on those broken plays, those scramble drills? If the first read isn't there going into a second full season as a starter, first time where he isn't learning a new system, guess where Jalen Hurts' eyes will be? Focus in directly on A.J. Brown. Those 9 rush attempts per game that Hurts had this past year, probably going to drop down to 5 or 6. And guess where those 3 extra targets will go to? A.J. Brown. Now, what are you going to say? Oh, he doesn't see the volume. Yes, he's only seen 106 receptions as a career high. But guess what? This past year, Jalen Hurts threw the ball only 28 times a game. The league average was 33. Say Jalen Hurts improves, which we all anticipate him doing with the steps that he's taken this offseason, whether it's working with Tom House, all the extra work with the receivers, not having to learn a new playbook for the first time ever. He's able to really focus in on his craft. So you can say 33 to 35 attempts a game is realistic for him, given a 25% target share. That's a little dip in his career averages in Tennessee. That would put him at around 140 targets, which would be a career high for him. He already has multiple 1,000-yard seasons, so guess what? He's going to be in that 11 to 1,200 range with 140 targets, probably right around 80, 90 catches at that rate. And then he'll be at that 8 to 10 touchdowns. Now, yes, Devontae Smith is an elite wide receiver too. Yes, Dallas Goedert is one of the better tight ends in the league. That, in a way, helps him. He won't have to deal with the double teams as much. Now, I know what you're going to say. Oh, what about Deebo Samuel? Deebo, the second half of the season, the majority of his production was based as a runner. That's not going to happen with a first-year starter as a mobile quarterback in Trey Lance. That efficiency is going to come down. At that point, you can expect Deebo to regress to close to his career and be right around that wide receiver 10 to 12 range. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, they're going to cannibalize each other for their targets. Tua isn't going to produce 2 top 10 receivers unless both of them, for whatever reason, have 1,500 yards and double-digit touchdowns. And then lastly, T. Higgins, your personal favorite, Joe, as we know. He is the number 2 in Cincinnati right now. but he did average more points per game than Jamar Chase the second half of the season. So he's the other guy who can possibly bump A.J. Brown down to that 8 or 9 range. A.J. Brown, I think, is comfortably going to be in the top 10. He's going to see a career high in targets due to efficiency with Jalen Hurts this year. The Godfather narrative will have A.J. Brown as a top 7 receiver this year, going as far as even into the top 10, not even at that 9 to 10 cusp.
Alex, not messing around. I want to give kudos to Alex on a couple of things here. Number one, my guy can't be shaken. He's sitting so low. I tried to cover his face up with the question. He adjusted himself and kept with the argument. I absolutely loved it, what he was doing there. But way more importantly, Joe Pepe might be the most proud Italian in this entire industry, and he's throwing the Godfather narrative at my guy. So no games played by Alex this week. So that was awesome. I loved that you both kind of took the same approach where, Joe, you gave all the guys that you thought were going to outplay him, and Alex, you gave all the reasons you said they're not going to outplay A.J. Brown in fantasy football this year. So what a great job you both did. For you folks, it is now up to you to decide who won this entire debate. So if you are watching this on Twitter, the next tweet is actually a poll, and you are going to vote, is A.J. Brown a top 10 fantasy wide receiver? Joe's argument is no. Alex's argument is yes. You're going to choose the winner. If you're watching us anywhere else, hop on over to our Twitter page. It's not that hard to find us, and you'll be able to take care of that there. Before we get out of here, Alex, once again, thank you so much for joining us on the show. As I mentioned, most patient man in the industry. Please tell everybody where they can find you, what you're working on, stuff you're going to be doing this season. This is your spotlight, man. Have at it.
I appreciate you guys having me on. I'm just so winded right now from just not out of my tripwire co-host. And that you'll be able to catch us on Mondays during the regular season, going through your waivers to help you out. But right now, I'm working on written content with Dynasty Nerds. Right now, we're doing a series where it's basically through the sleeper ADP, just different rosters that you can build from each slot in the draft. Really interesting series to work on right there. But mostly you'll be able to catch me on Triple Play doing all media content there.
Absolutely love it. And Joe, I know you're one of the hardest working men in this industry. What do you got going on besides dunking on Joe here at Club Fantasy?
Well, I got the Tripwire with Alex, Zach, Steve, another Club Fantasy member.
Yeah.
I do have Fantasy Pros. I have a tight end twos that can become a top 5 option, which is funny considering I love to punt tight end, so it fits right into my wheelhouse.
I was going to say.
I got a couple of shows coming up, doing something with a couple of Philly shows. I don't know if I'm at liberty to discuss it yet, but it'll come out tomorrow, I'm assuming.
All right.
But a few extra shows, and then, I'm just going to be goofy online and deal with trolls the way I like to in the most fun way possible.
That's right. If you haven't heard, my guy Joe Pepe can cover Julio Jones. He's confident he can pull that off right now. So that's for his number one fan out there. So if you are not following these gentlemen, at JPep20 for Joe Pepe, at Alex Matteo 94, and that is 2 T's in Matteo. Make sure you're following these guys. I am a huge fan of everything you guys are doing with the Tripwire podcast. And Alex, I want to check that series out you're working on too, because that's right up my alley with that kind of draft strategy stuff from different slots. Speaking of draft strategy, Club Fantasy has shows every Monday where we do fantasy mock drafts. Joe's always in those with me. That's how I knew he is a punt the tight end kind of guy. Every Wednesday we do live shows. Right now we are finishing up our Look Inside series. Last week we had Stefania Bell on the show. Yes, you heard me correct. This week it's going to be Jake Trowbridge from the MB Fantasy Life. The easiest way you can make sure you don't miss dunking on Joe or any of our shows is to make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're constantly doing giveaways. We have our Women of Fantasy shows coming up in the month of August, so there's going to be a ton of content for you to follow. Hit that sub button. Make sure you never miss anything. Make sure you're following these guys. Make sure you're following Club Fantasy at Club Fantasy FFL. We have a ton of articles coming out on our website every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We have player spotlights. We just dropped a Trey Lance player spotlight. And later on this week, we're going to have Aaron Jones and Travis Kelce coming out. So Club Fantasy has you covered when it comes to content all summer long. Our rankings are going to be dropping on August 1st. We thank you guys for tuning in. Hit that subscribe button and make sure you go vote in the poll. This show isn't great unless you vote. Thank you again.